For thousands of years, the Zorath Empire ruled the galaxy with fire and fear. Their fleets moved like storms across the stars, crushing anyone who stood against them. No rebellion lasted more than a day. No world dared to fight. Their technology was perfect. Their power absolute, their pride unbreakable. On the distant mining planet of Vorax, a small group of workers tried to rebel. They believed they could free their people from the Zorath's control, but within hours, the Empire's battleships arrived, dark and silent. The sky turned red as plasma fire rained down. The rebellion ended before it even began. Admiral Vec, the supreme commander of the Zorath fleet, stood inside his flagship, smiling coldly. He looked down at the burning world and said, "Another spark erased." His officers bowed, afraid to meet his eyes. The admiral turned and stared at the stars beyond, his voice low and filled with pride. "No one can challenge the Zorath Empire," he said. Not anymore. For centuries that was true. The Zorath Empire had defeated every known species. Their fleets numbered in the thousands, their weapons unmatched. They called themselves the eternal masters of the galaxy, and everyone believed it until that night. It began with a strange signal, faint and broken, echoing from deep space, a forgotten frequency carrying an old human code. The Zorath technicians were confused. They tried to trace it, but the source was hidden beyond the galactic rim. Admiral Vec dismissed it as a ghost transmission. Probably some old probe from the lost colonies, he said. But deep inside, he felt something strange, a small, unfamiliar feeling. It was not fear, but unease. Hours passed, and the signal grew stronger. It carried rhythm, pulse, and something like a heartbeat. The Zorath scientists ran endless scans. The code was old, ancient, but intelligent. They discovered one word repeating inside it, over and over again. That word was Terra. The technicians stared at the display, whispering to each other. "Terra," one said quietly. "That was the human homeworld, wasn't it?" Another laughed nervously. "Humans? They vanished centuries ago." But the signal did not stop. It became clearer, stronger, alive. Admiral Vec ordered the signal to be jammed. He didn't want his soldiers wasting time on myths. But that night he stood alone in the command deck. Watching the stars, he could not sleep. Somewhere far beyond the known borders of the galaxy, something was stirring, something old, something that was never meant to return. In the darkness of deep space, a massive shadow moved silently, a ship black as night, larger than any vessel the Zorath had ever built. Its engines burned blue, its hull marked with ancient human symbols. On its side, one word glowed faintly through the dust of time. Valkyrie. Inside that ship, lights flickered to life for the first time in centuries. Crew members woke from cryo-sleep. Alarms sounded, and the ship's AI spoke softly, "Mission status. Humanity detected." At the front of the bridge, Captain Mira Hayes opened her eyes. She had been asleep for 200 years. She looked at the holographic star map before her, red markers spread across every sector, showing Zorath control. Her expression turned cold. "They rule everything," she whispered. Not for long. The Valkyrie's engines hummed, shaking the empty silence of the void. For the first time in centuries, a Terran warship prepared for battle. And somewhere in the endless dark, the Zorath Empire continued to celebrate its victory. They had no idea that the age of fear was ending, and a new name was about to echo through the stars: humanity. Captain Mira Hayes stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie, staring at the glowing star map. Her eyes were calm but sharp, filled with memories of battles long forgotten. Around her, the crew began to wake from cryosleep, confused but alert. Some had served with her centuries ago. Others were scientists and engineers frozen during Earth's final war. The ship's AI spoke in a clear voice. "Captain, systems restored to 60% capacity, weapons offline, communications unstable." Mira took a deep breath and replied, "Start repairs. We have a long way to go." Her second in command, Lieutenant Kane, looked around at the silent control panels. "It feels like waking up from death," he said quietly. Mira nodded. "Maybe that's exactly what we did. For 2 centuries, the Valkyrie had drifted near the galactic edge, hidden in the shadows of dead worlds. Humanity had fallen silent after the Great Collapse. Its colonies burned, its fleets destroyed. The galaxy believed humans were extinct. But here, inside this ship, humanity still lived. Waiting for the right time to return, Mira stood before the main display as the AI projected new data. Unidentified signals detected, multiple sources. Design consistent with Zorath military, the name echoed through the silent bridge. The Zorath Empire, the rulers of the galaxy, the ones who claimed to be invincible. Kane clenched his fists. So they're the ones who took everything from us? Mira's voice was calm but cold. Then we take it back. The crew began working, running diagnostics, repairing engines, recalibrating shields. Old Terran technology came alive once more. Systems humming like an awakened beast, energy flowed through ancient circuits, powering weapons that had not fired in hundreds of years. Every heartbeat of the ship was like a drum calling humanity to rise again. In the mess hall, young engineer Lyra watched the old war footage stored in the archives. She saw cities burning, Earth falling, fleets dying one by one. She looked at Mira and said, "Why did we hide, Captain? Why didn't we fight back?" Mira paused for a long moment before answering. "Because we thought survival was victory," she said. "But we were wrong. Silence is not survival." Outside the ship, the stars seemed to whisper of forgotten glory. The Valkyrie's engines flared blue as the ship turned toward the Zorath sector. One by one, crew members reported readiness. The weapons bay opened slowly, revealing sleek Terran missiles marked with human flags faded by time. Kane looked at Mira. "Are we really doing this?" "One ship against an empire," she smiled faintly. "We are not just a ship, Lieutenant. We are a memory. And memories never die." Her voice carried strength that silenced every doubt. The crew straightened, their eyes filled with determination. The ship's AI announced, "Course set for Zorath Patrol Zone 17. Estimated time to contact 8 hours." Mira whispered, "Let's remind them who we are." As the Valkyrie cut through the void, sensors picked up faint signals, alien transmissions filled with laughter and arrogance. Zorath fleets were celebrating another conquest, another world destroyed. They believed their rule would never end. They did not know that something ancient was moving toward them, silent and patient. Inside the Valkyrie, every light glowed brighter, every system thrummed with energy. It was as if the ship itself knew the war was about to begin again. Mira stood before the main window, watching the endless stars. "Humans may have vanished," she said softly, "but we never surrendered." Far away, in the command fortress of the Zorath Empire, Admiral Vec received a strange report. "An unidentified vessel has entered our border zone," the officer said. Vec frowned. "Another rebel ship?" The officer shook his head. "No, Admiral, the signal pattern is unknown. Its engine type does not exist in our records." Vec's eyes narrowed. "Then find it." The Valkyrie moved closer, unseen, unheard. The galaxy was about to witness something it had forgotten. The return of the species that once burned the stars. The return of humanity. The Zorath patrol fleet was moving through the cold dark of space, 20 ships strong, shining with blue light. They were guarding a mining zone at the edge of the Empire. Bored and overconfident, their commander, Captain Zell, sat lazily in his command chair, sipping from a glass of green liquid. He had fought many battles and crushed many enemies. To him, this was just another silent night. Then, a voice came from the comms officer. "Captain, we are detecting an unknown ship entering our zone." Exel frowned. "Another smuggler? Destroy it." But the officer hesitated. "Sir, it's different. The signal is not Zorath. Not any known species." The captain laughed. "Then it's some broken pirate ship." Fire warning shots. Far away, the Valkyrie moved slowly. Silent like a ghost, inside the bridge, Captain Mira Hayes stood with her arms crossed, watching the enemy ships appear on the display. "They've seen us," Kane said. His hands on the controls, Mira's voice was calm. "Let them." The Valkyrie did not change course. Did not respond to the warnings, it just kept moving, its black hull reflecting no light. The Zorath ships fired first, bright plasma streaks racing through the void. The explosions surrounded the human ship, but it didn't react. No shields flickered. No weapons fired back. Captain Zell laughed again. "Pathetic. It can't even defend itself." Then something strange happened. The Valkyrie vanished from their sensors. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Panic spread across the Zorath bridge. Where did it go? Scan again, the captain shouted, but before they could react, one of the Zorath destroyers exploded into pieces. Torn apart by invisible force, the shock wave shook the fleet. Alarms screamed, and the captain froze. Mira's voice echoed inside the Valkyrie. Target locked, fire sequence engaged, Kane nodded. Pressing the launch command, invisible rail cannons fired from hidden ports. Moving faster than light, another Zorath cruiser was hit. Splitting into two burning halves, the crew inside had no time to scream. The Zorath ships tried to form a battle line, but the human warship moved too fast. It appeared and disappeared like a ghost, striking from every angle. Their weapons couldn't lock on, their shields failed. Impossible! Captain Zell shouted. How can one ship do this? Mira watched calmly, her face lit by the glow of the battle. Status, she asked. 5 enemy ships destroyed. 4 heavily damaged, Kane replied. Minimal energy use, no damage to hull, the AI added. Mira gave a small nod. Good. Let one live. The Valkyrie stopped firing. Its shadow hanging over the broken remains of the Zorath fleet. Only one ship was left, its hull burning, systems dying. Mira opened a communication channel, her voice steady and cold. This is Captain Mira Hayes of the Terran warship Valkyrie, she said. To the Zorath Empire, your reign of terror ends today. On the other end, Captain Zell stared at the screen in shock. He could barely understand her words. Terran humans? He whispered, his face pale. Mira looked straight into his eyes. Remember that name, she said. Then she closed the channel. And the Valkyrie vanished again into the stars, leaving nothing but wreckage behind. The surviving Zorath ship limped back to the nearest base, its communication system barely working. But the captain made sure one message was sent across the galaxy. It was human. The humans have returned. When Admiral Vec heard the report, he laughed at first. A single ship destroyed 20 of ours? Nonsense. But as more reports came from other patrols, each mentioning the same black warship, his smile slowly faded. The Zorath Empire had ruled for 1,000 years, unchallenged and proud, but now something was changing. Fear had entered their hearts for the first time. In the silence of deep space, the Valkyrie continued its journey. Mira stood at the bridge window, watching the distant stars. We've been quiet for too long, she said softly. It's time they remembered why they feared us. The news spread faster than light across the Zorath Empire. From the smallest outpost to the grandest capital, whispers began. A patrol fleet had been destroyed by a single unknown ship. At first, the commanders laughed, calling it a mistake. But soon, the laughter stopped. Every surviving officer told the same story, a black warship, silent as death. Appearing and vanishing at will, no known technology could do that. The reports all ended with the same word, repeated like a curse, Terran. In the grand war chamber of the Zorath High Council, Admiral Vec stood before a crowd of nervous leaders. His eyes burned with anger. This rumor of humans must end, he said, his voice sharp as a blade. The Zorath Empire bows to no ghost. But even as he spoke, fear lingered in every glance, for deep down, they all remembered the stories, ancient legends of the Terrans, the destroyers, the ones who once burned whole empires to ashes on the other side of the galaxy. Captain Mira Hayes watched the same chaos unfold through intercepted transmissions. The Valkyrie floated silently between dying stars, its black hull glowing faintly under the light of nebulae. Mira listened as alien broadcasters whispered about the phantom human ship. She smiled slightly. Let them talk, she said. Kane looked at her. They're afraid, Captain. Good, Mira replied. Fear is the beginning of change. Her crew was busy repairing the ship. The previous battle had drained their power cells, and the weapons needed recalibration. But even while working, the air on the bridge felt alive. Every crew member knew they had started something unstoppable. Engineer Lyra ran a system check, her voice echoing through the bridge. Captain, I'm detecting heavy movement near Sector 9. Looks like the Zorath are gathering a fleet. Mira walked to the center console, her eyes narrowing. How many ships? She asked. Over 200? Maybe more, Lyra replied. Kane whistled softly. That's their Dreadlord fleet. Mira nodded. Then that's where we're going. The crew stared at her in disbelief. Captain, that's suicide, Kane said quickly. One ship against 200, Mira turned to him, her voice calm and strong. We are not here to survive, Lieutenant. We are here to remind them what humanity means. As the Valkyrie moved toward the Dreadlord fleet, the Zorath Admiral prepared for war. Vec stood on the bridge of his flagship, a colossal vessel named the Sovereign Flame. He watched as hundreds of ships formed around him. Shining like a metal sea, he raised his hand and shouted, Today, we erase the human myth forever. Meanwhile, in the Valkyrie, silence filled the air. The crew prepared for the impossible. Weapons armed, shields raised, engines burning brighter than ever. The AI's voice echoed softly. Enemy fleet detected. Distance 40,000 kilometers, Kane whispered. So many ships? Mira's voice was calm. And only one that matters. The Zorath fleet locked weapons. Ready to fire, Admiral Vec shouted the command. Destroy that ship! Thousands of plasma rounds streaked across the dark, lighting up the void. For a moment, it looked like the end. Then the Valkyrie moved. It darted between explosions, its movements sharp and unnatural. The ship's cannons roared, invisible projectiles tearing through enemy hulls. Every shot hit its mark. In seconds, 10 ships were gone. Then 20, then 50. The Zorath Admiral could not believe his eyes. What is this power? He shouted. How can one Terran ship fight an entire fleet? On the Valkyrie, the crew worked like one mind. Kane called out targets, Lyra boosted weapon energy. The AI calculated firing arcs. Mira stood firm, her eyes locked on the flagship. Admiral Vec, she whispered. Your time is over, the Valkyrie's main cannon charged. Glowing with blinding blue light, the ship's systems screamed from the energy overload. Then, with a single shot, the beam cut through space like a blade. The explosion that followed shook the entire battlefield. The Zorath flagship broke apart, its wreckage scattered among the stars. Silence filled the comm channels. Thousands of alien eyes watched in disbelief as their mighty leader vanished into light. The humans had done the impossible. The Invincible Empire had finally met something stronger. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy trembled. The destruction of the Zorath flagship spread through the galaxy like a storm. No one had ever seen the mighty Sovereign Flame fall. Billions watched the broadcast, and the name Valkyrie became a whisper of both fear and hope. Across the stars, enslaved species looked up from their chains, wondering if the time for freedom had finally come. In the Zorath capital, panic filled the halls of power. The council screamed for revenge, demanding the destruction of the human ship. Admiral Vec was gone, their fleets were scattered, and their pride was broken. But pride once wounded can become dangerous. A new leader rose among them, High Marshal Draz, cold and ruthless. He ordered every remaining fleet to hunt down the Valkyrie. He swore that the Terran name would be erased from history once and for all. Find them, he shouted, and burn their memory from the stars. Meanwhile, in the silence of space, the Valkyrie floated among the wreckage of battle. Its hull was damaged, engines flickering, systems strained, but the crew was alive, and the spirit of humanity burned brighter than ever. Captain Mira Hayes stood at the window, watching fragments of enemy ships drift past. They will come again, she said softly. Kane nodded. Then we'll be ready. Engineer Lyra worked tirelessly in the lower decks. Repairing the ship's main cannon, the AI's voice guided her, calm and precise. Energy output critical, shields at 40%, it warned. She wiped sweat from her forehead and smiled faintly. 40% is enough, she whispered. We've done more with less. The crew gathered in the command room. Their faces tired but determined. Mira looked at them one by one. We started this to show them that fear has a limit, she said. But now, we fight for everyone they've broken, every world they've enslaved. Her words lit a fire in their hearts. At the edge of known space, signals began to appear. More Zorath ships coming. Hundreds of them. The Valkyrie's sensors flashed red. The AI spoke calmly. Multiple enemy fleets approaching from 3 directions. Kane looked at the data. We're surrounded. Mira smiled faintly. Good. Saves us the trouble of chasing them. The Zorath fleets formed a ring around the human ship, filling the darkness with light. Thousands of plasma cannons charged, ready to fire. High Marshal Draz appeared on every communication screen. A tall alien with silver skin and burning red eyes, he glared at Mira, his voice echoing through the speakers. Human, your species should have stayed dead. Mira looked straight at him, her face calm. You should have left us alone, she replied. The space around them exploded with energy as the battle began. Plasma bolts and missiles filled the void. Turning it into a sea of fire, the Valkyrie moved like lightning. Weaving through the chaos, its railguns roared, cutting through ships one after another. Each explosion painted the stars in orange and gold. But even the Valkyrie couldn't fight forever. Shields flickered, hull plates cracked, systems began to fail. Inside the ship, alarms screamed, and smoke filled the bridge. Lyra shouted, Main reactor overheating. Kane tried to stabilize the power. We can't take another hit. Mira gritted her teeth. We don't need to. She activated the ship's secret protocol, Project Thunderheart, a hidden weapon designed during Earth's final war, something even her crew didn't know about. The AI's voice turned cold. Captain, activating Thunderheart will destroy this ship. I know, Mira said quietly, but it will save millions. Outside, the Zorath fleets prepared their final strike. High Marshal Draz watched, confident of victory. Then, the Valkyrie's hull began to glow with a strange blue light. The surrounding space trembled. Energy building like a living storm. Kane looked at Mira, shocked. What are you doing? Mira smiled sadly. Finishing what we started. The Valkyrie released a blinding wave of energy. The light spread across space, engulfing every enemy ship in its path. Engines failed, weapons melted, and the mighty Zorath fleets fell silent. When the light faded, only the Valkyrie remained, drifting among the ruins inside. The crew was alive but silent, Lyra whispered. Did we win? Mira looked at the dark horizon, her eyes calm. For now, she said softly. But this war is far from over. The Valkyrie drifted in silence after the great battle. The stars outside were calm again, but the galaxy was not. Every communication channel was filled with confusion and fear. The Zorath fleets had been destroyed, their pride burned to ashes. But Mira Hayes knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning, inside the ship. Engineers worked day and night to repair what they could. The hull was cracked, the weapons half dead, and energy levels were low. Kane stood beside Mira on the bridge, looking at the fading stars. We can't fight another battle like that. Captain, he said quietly. Mira nodded. I know. That's why we need something stronger. The AI appeared as a blue light on the console, its tone calm and serious. Captain, new data recovered from the Thunderheart systems. Coordinates found in deep space. Mira raised an eyebrow. Coordinates to what? The AI paused for a second before answering. A Terran signal over 600 years old. The bridge went silent. Lyra looked up from her station. A Terran signal? From before the collapse. Mira stepped closer, staring at the glowing map. The coordinates led to a dead zone beyond any charted territory, a place known in ancient records as the Grave Sector. Rumors said it was where the last human fleet had vanished. Mira's voice was firm. Set course for those coordinates. Kane hesitated. Captain, if that signal is real, it could be dangerous. She looked at him and smiled faintly. Danger is all that's left for us. The Valkyrie's engines came alive again, blue fire lighting the darkness. The ship turned toward the unknown, carrying the hope of an entire species. As they traveled through the void, the crew listened to fragments of alien news across the galaxy. Rebellion had begun. Worlds once enslaved by the Zorath Empire were rising. Miners, soldiers, and farmers were picking up old weapons. They called themselves the Free Systems, and every one of them spoke the same name, humanity. Mira watched the broadcasts in silence. Her ship had become a symbol, a legend, but legends had a price. She knew the Zorath would return, stronger and angrier. She needed something that could end the war once and for all. Days later, the Valkyrie reached the coordinates. Before them was a graveyard of dead ships. Hundreds of massive warships floated in silence. Frozen in time, their designs were human, but ancient. Kane whispered, "Is this—" "The old Terran fleet," Mira nodded slowly. "Yes, our ancestors." As they moved deeper, sensors picked up a massive structure at the center, a dark metallic sphere the size of a moon. The AI identified it. Designation, Arc Project, Terran origin. Status, dormant. Lyra stared at the readings. "Captain, the energy inside that thing could power 10 planets." Mira's eyes narrowed. "Or destroy them." They docked the Valkyrie near the sphere's surface. Inside, the corridors were silent and cold. Filled with dust and broken lights, the team moved carefully. Their suits glowing in the darkness, symbols of old Earth covered the walls. Words like unity, strength, survival. At the heart of the sphere, they found a massive control room. In the center floated a single console, still active after centuries. Mira approached it slowly. The screen flickered, showing a symbol she recognized, the Terran flag. A voice echoed through the room. "Project Arc online. Awaiting command authorization." Mira froze. "It's still functional," she whispered. The AI on her wrist scanned the interface. "Captain, this structure contains an unfinished weapon, codenamed Eclipse. Capable of rewriting planetary cores." Kane looked horrified. "That's not a weapon. That's extinction." Mira stared at the glowing console, her reflection shimmering in the blue light. "Maybe," she said softly, "but if the Zorath find it first, it's the end of everyone." Back on the Valkyrie, a message arrived from the free systems. Their fleets were forming, ready to fight beside humanity. The galaxy was finally uniting against their common enemy. But Mira's mind was elsewhere. She knew that what she found inside the Arc Project could save or destroy everything. She turned to her crew, her voice steady and cold. "We'll finish what our ancestors started," she said. "If the Zorath want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget." The Valkyrie powered up again, leaving the dark sphere behind in the distance. New lights began to appear, Zorath ships approaching fast. The final chapter of the war was coming, and the galaxy was about to learn what it truly meant when humanity returned. The Valkyrie moved through the darkness like a silent storm. Behind it, the wreckage of old Terran ships floated endlessly. Ahead, the scanners showed a wall of energy, the Zorath's last defense line. Thousands of warships waited, ready to destroy anything that dared to cross. Captain Mira Hayes stood on the bridge, calm and steady. Her eyes reflected the distant fire of stars. She knew this battle would decide the fate of the galaxy. Kane looked at her, his voice low. "Captain, they outnumber us 1,000 to 1. Mira smiled faintly. "Then we'll only need one shot," the AI's voice echoed softly. "Captain, the Arc Project's data has been uploaded." "We can activate Eclipse Protocol." Lyra turned sharply. "That's suicide." "It could tear apart the entire system." Mira's eyes stayed fixed on the star map. "If we don't, the Zorath will never stop." Across the galaxy, the free systems fleets gathered. Dozens of alien species once enslaved by the Empire now flew under one flag. They watched the Valkyrie lead the charge. The ship that started it all, for the first time in 1,000 years. Hope had returned on the Zorath command station. High Marshal Draz watched the approaching fleet, his claws dug into the metal railing, his voice filled with hate. "Fire everything! Leave nothing alive!" The sky around him came alive with plasma fire. Millions of energy blasts tore through the void toward the humans and their allies. The Valkyrie dived into the chaos. Weaving through explosions and wreckage, Kane shouted, "Shields at 20%. Keep moving," Mira said firmly. "Don't stop!" The ship shook violently. Alarms blaring, but it kept pushing forward. Every cannon fired, cutting through enemy ships like lightning through clouds. Outside, the Allied fleets joined the fight. The sky turned into a sea of fire and debris. For the first time, the Zorath were being pushed back. They had always been the hunters, but now they were the hunted. Mira's eyes narrowed as she looked at the massive Zorath command ship, the Oblivion Star. "That's their core," she said. "We end this there." Kane hesitated. "We can't get close enough. Their shields are too strong." Mira took a deep breath. her voice quiet. "Then we'll use the Eclipse," the AI confirmed. "Eclipse ready to deploy! Activation will destroy the Valkyrie!" Lyra looked at her captain, her voice breaking. "You can't do this." Mira smiled gently. "Someone has to." The ship's lights dimmed. Power rerouted to the core, energy built up inside the reactor. Glowing brighter and brighter, outside, the battle reached its peak. Thousands of ships exploding across the stars. The Free Systems fleet opened a path for the Valkyrie. "Go, Captain," Kane said, his voice filled with respect. "Make it count." The Valkyrie raced toward the Oblivion Star. Engines screaming, missiles chased it, beams of light tore through space. Still, it moved forward, unstoppable. Mira stood tall. Her hands steady on the console, she whispered softly, "For Earth." For humanity, as the ship neared the enemy flagship, the reactor hit critical power. The AI spoke one last time. "Goodbye, Captain," Mira smiled. "Goodbye, old friend." Then, the Valkyrie disappeared in a blinding flash. The explosion that followed was unlike anything seen before. A wave of blue energy spread across the battlefield. It consumed the Oblivion Star, shattered the Zorath fleets, and erased the Empire's power in seconds. When the light faded, silence filled the galaxy. The war was over. The Zorath were gone. In the distance, the Free Systems ships drifted quietly. Watching the empty space where the Valkyrie had been, Kane's voice came through the comms. Faint but steady. "She did it," he said. "The captain did it." Every soldier, every pilot, every survivor bowed their heads. Across the galaxy, the name Mira Hayes became legend. Years later, the Free Systems rebuilt what was lost, and at the center of their new capital stood a statue of a woman holding a star in her hand. Below it, the words were written in simple Terran script. They thought they were invincible until humanity returned. Far beyond the edge of known space, a faint signal pulsed in the void, old and familiar, repeating one word again and again, "Valkyrie,